Howdy folks, Eric here, back with another standard video. Back on Abzan Midrange today, a deck I had played a couple weeks ago for a video. Back when Is It Lessons, like the Monument to Endurance, Artist's Talent list was very popular. And so I was leaning in pretty heavily into the main deck Graveyard Hate. However, on the latter lately, there's been a lot more Badgermole Cub, Go Wide Ouroboros lists. So this is a bit retuned with that taken into consideration. Down to 2 Ketramos from 3. We're trying out a couple Freestrider Lookout, 3 Gear Hulk. We're on 4 Elegy Acolyte. I found that Elegy Acolyte plus Deep Cavern Bat is a pretty strong synergy, and Elegy Acolyte doesn't really have any bad matchups. I guess sometimes you just play it and it's a 4/4 lifelinker, but most of the time if you clear the way for it, and we're chock full of removal, clear the way for it with your removal and your Deep Cavern Bats, it tends to be a very persistent threat that generates card advantage. Couple Scavenger Regents, very flexible. Still a decent amount of main deck Graveyard Hate, all of which we can find off of our Bright Glass Gear Hulk. The nice thing about this sort of partially being in on Ketramos plan is we don't have to pack 4 Soul Guide Lanterns and 4 Maze Mind Tome to enable it. Cards that are good but a little slow, right? Most of our card advantage is also in the form of beaters, right? So couple Ketramos, couple Ghost Vacuum, 1 Soul Guide Lantern. All of our removal is exile based pretty much. We're on 4 Seam Rip and 4 Aang's Iceberg. Couple Herd Heirloom. Doing this thing, once again, the Phenomena Recorder with this Seam Rip Aang's Iceberg package, which if you watched the Esper Sozin Control video right before this, I found that to be a pretty interesting, powerful synergy. 1 Rise of Sozin, because I like it quite a lot, and 4 Split Up. Once again, adjusted for this Badgermole Cub Ouroboros Go Wide meta. 24 lands. Land base is pretty straightforward. The important thing about building this land base, I think, is that we can't have a swamp or any lands that just tap for black. As far as utility goes, 1 Bossing Say, 3 Restless Cottage, 1 Valgavoth Lair that you can find off the Gear Hulk. No swamps because we need to be able to cast our Gear Hulks consistently on turn 4. And here's our sideboard. 1 Curious Farm Animals, a couple Dragon Snipers. These are pretty good at slowing down opposing creature-based decks that we can find off of the Gear Hulks. 4 Voice of Victory and 4 Duress for control and blue deck matchups essentially. 1 Authority of the Consoles helps slow down aggro as well. A couple Get Lost, and 1 more Rise of Sozin just to really hammer home these aggressive matchups, or creature-based go wide matchups basically. I think it's a pretty interesting list. I'm curious to see how the Freestrider Lookout plays. We have a lot of ways to commit crimes, not only on our turn, but on our opponent's turn. These 2 Ghost Vacuums and 4 Aang's Iceberg. Soul Guide Lantern commits a crime when it enters, so I think it'll be pretty interesting. Plus, we have a lot of reason to want to be ramping, essentially, to help pay off the card advantage that we're garnering. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting list. Hopefully it plays well. I tested it this morning a couple times in a couple matches, and it was good and fun. So let's hop into some ranked games, and hopefully I can show it off a little bit. All right, on the play for match number 1. Got a mulligan this away, unfortunately. This is pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this. Let's ditch the Elegy Acolyte. We're pretty far away from that. I trimmed down on Herd Heirlooms. The original build idea was that we had the Herd Heirlooms to help justify the green white pips of Bright Glass Gear Hulk in combination with the double black from Elegy Acolyte. This hand's shaping up pretty nicely. We definitely just need to hit our 3rd land drop, and we should be able to open up nicely here. Well, gotta go ahead and Seam Rip this Hatcher. Nothing in the graveyard for our Ghost Vacuum quite yet. Perhaps a little bit of asymmetry there, in that we have this Ghost Vacuum plan, but all of our removal is exiling. Something to keep in mind. Well, there's something in the graveyard, so we'd like to hit a land drop here. Herd Heirloom, that's pretty close. Go ahead and play this. See what our opponent's up to here. We should be able to keep them off of Delirium pretty easily. Quantum Riddler. See if they have, like, Full Bore to follow this up. Haven't been playing against this list too much lately. Double Riddler. Okay. Not the worst turn for us. Opponent just kind of cycling through their deck a little here. Ketchermos. Ooh, interesting. I think I'd rather go for the Freestrider Lookout first. And we can just pass here. We can Ghost Vacuum pretty much whenever we want. Let's see if they set up Delirium. Roaring Furnace. Well, they can't stop us from triggering this. Exile their Torch. And then they're putting another creature in the graveyard. Yeah, we'll take this Godless Shrine. Pretty nice. They're putting another target in the graveyard for us to be able to, like, trigger this Ketchermos now. And Ketchermos is actually, like, naturally kind of close to being online with these Riddlers being in exile. I think that's kind of interesting. Frostcliff Siege, I think we're going to have to deal with that. Man, I wish we had another land. Do we have to deal with the Frostcliff Siege? I think so. Maybe we can afford to go, like, Ketchermos first and then deal with it next turn. Try to draw a land here. Help us double spell next turn. Yeah, there's a Seam Rip. That's actually not a bad hit either. Seam Rip the FOMO. Hopefully hit a land and then Aang's Iceberg the Frostcliff Siege, perhaps. They shock themselves. Storm Chaser's Talon. Okay, well, that makes sense. Riddler. Gonna be hit for 8 here. No, sorry, 10. Pretty big hit. Might not be surviving this. We'll see. Maybe the Ketchermos was a little risky. Deep Cavern Bat, huh? I don't think we can get 3 things in exile here to be able to swing with the Ketchermos. Maybe we go, like, Freestrider Lookout. Exile the FOMO. Draw a card. Trigger the Crime. And then we can block the Riddler. That's not particularly close. I guess if we hit a land off of this Seam Rip, we can play double bat and then be able to swing with the Ketchermos. I'm not sure that that'll be enough either. Let's go for this. There's a land. Well, let's go ahead and pack this one in. Kind of a bad draw for us, I think. We saw a lot of cards, but not a whole lot of land action there. Bring in the Authority. I think we want the Get Lost to be able to hit, like, Riddlers and the Frostcliff Sieges. I think Dragon Sniper's pretty good here, too. And we'll skip on the Farm Animals. Skip on the Voice of Victory here, I think. The rest could be okay. Let's go down. Maybe cut a Ghost Vacuum. Cut a Recorder here. You know, I think the Recorder's pretty good, actually. Split Up is good, but I think we probably don't need the full set. Maybe go down 1 Lookout. They're probably going to bring in, like, a Braid after seeing the Lookout. I guess I'm not entirely sure. And then the Regent, yeah, we can probably cut both of the Regents, actually. Their creatures are pretty high toughness. So maybe for that reason we go back up the Lookout here. I think the ceiling on the Lookout is pretty high if we have the right setup for it. On the play here. Okay, gonna keep this. I like that we actually get to deploy our stuff in a timely manner. Lead on the Restless Cottage here. Storm Chaser's Talent. Go for the Herd Heirloom. Crossing our fingers, I suppose, that we just like draw one of our big 4 drops. A Bright Glass would be pretty nice right now. Help set up the Lookout. FOMO. I guess we could probably just afford to go Lush Portico, Lookout, like if we don't draw any real action here. Oh, there's a Bright Glass. Wow. Okie dokie. Well, let's just do the good thing here, I think, which is Seam Rip for FOMO and get our Ghost Vacuum to start enabling this Free Strider Lookout, turn off their Delirium. Maybe you could argue for the authority of the consoles there, but I have an answer to a Frostcliff Siege if we need it. Roaring Furnace kills the Bright Glass. Not the end of the world. Land. Could have a torch up here. Let's be mindful of that. If I delay one more turn on this Free Strider Lookout, I can avoid having to take some pain from this Multiversal Passage, and I can just cast this Elegy Acolyte, which could be pretty good, although they could just like Boomerang Basics their Roaring Furnace and then kill the Elegy Acolyte, and that wouldn't be very kind for us. So maybe it's just better to do the proactive thing here. I'm going to shock myself. Let's put this on black. Let's get the Ghost Vacuum on the field. That way, I at the very least can get 1 trigger off of this Free Strider Lookout, guaranteed. If they like kill my Lookout or try to kill my Lookout while this Seam Rip trigger, or sorry, while the Seam Rip is on the stack here. Okay, so it all kind of works out as we wanted it to. Let's grab this other cottage. Building up some healthy mana now. A lot to work with. Frostcliff Siege, not a huge deal for us. Especially if they're missing their land drops here. Oh, nice. Okay. So we're in actually a really good spot, I think. We'll be able to Ghost Vacuum them end of turn. Hopefully hit another land. And then have quite a lot of mana to work with next turn. Play an Elegy Acolyte, be able to Aang's Iceberg, the Frostcliff Siege, another Gear Hulk. Let's just go for the Elegy Acolyte here. Lets me start swinging in. And then actually, I think I'm going to Aang's Iceberg the Frostcliff Siege right now. It'll trigger the Void on the Elegy Acolyte and trigger this Crime here. Building up a huge mana base now. We probably don't want to draw a Restless Cottage. Pass on the Forest as well. Okay, sweet. Get a robot, and we're pretty close to being able to fire up both of these Restless Cottages, which, once again, trigger crimes, work with Ketramos, so on and so forth. Are they thinking about bouncing my Aang's Iceberg? Swings in with the Otter. I think I'll just block with the robot. No need to put the Elegy Acolyte at risk. Maybe they have like double full bore in hand. A Braid, okay. Makes sense. I can't commit a crime right now, so I just have to let this happen. Trades. See if they have an answer for this Elegy Acolyte. Could just take over the game. Kind of another cool synergy that comes up sometimes. If you have the Acolyte and a first strike creature, you can like get 2 triggers off of its combat damage ability. And Gear Hulk happens to have first strike. Yeah, just go ahead and hit the Abrade right now. Stay flexible here. All right. Yeah, I'm just gonna swing in with the Acolyte. See what we hit. Activate this Herd Heirloom. Still not a whole lot of like Into the Floodmaw in the meta right now. Fortunately for us. Aang's Iceberg, nice draw. Authority of the Consuls, nice hit. Okay, sweet. So we can play this Authority. We can probably trigger the Void again if we want to by grabbing like a Seam Rip here. Just Seam Rip the Storm Chaser's talent, keep them off of options. Phenomenon Recorder is a good grab. Let's go Recorder and Seam Rip here. I think that's pretty good. We have another Seam Rip in hand. We can hold up Aang's Iceberg mana and then next turn have enough mana to like really pay off the Phenomenon Recorder Aang's Iceberg plan. Making dudes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can't come back from this one. We're just way too far ahead. All of our creatures redraw basically, and we have like so much mana available. We can do a lot of game actions here. Boomerang basics. Well, I'm going to respond to that by going for this Aang's Iceberg. And then if it re-enters off of the Aang's Iceberg, it is not, neither of the rooms will be unlocked, so they can't like reasonably Boomerang basics the Aang's Iceberg either. Quantum Riddler on the field. Back to me. Rise of Sozin, interesting. I am kind of close to lethal. If I had one more mana, I could do it. I guess I'm going to swing with the Cottage anyway. I think getting the extra life from the food here is probably pretty relevant. Swing out. Yep. Exile the Boomerang basics here. First strike damage. We'll see what we draw before we activate this Herd Heirloom. Activate the Herd Heirloom. Oh, they're just dead. Okay. Apparently I had super lethal anyway. They are just dead. Brain is not 100% on quite yet, but no problem. Still won the game. Match 1, game 3. On the draw, got a mulligan this. 1 land. Yeah, this looks pretty good. We have access to split up. Probably just put back the Dragon Sniper here. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Dragon Sniper acts best as a Gear Hulk target. And we have these split ups to sort of reset early aggressive boards, so we don't really need to contend that way. Drake Hatcher, kind of scary. I'm just gonna shock in this Godless Shrine and kill the Drake Hatcher before they can do anything. I don't wanna see this go off personally. Pretty scary stuff if they like have a pump and counterspell, and I'm just kind of out of that game. I guess, you know, I'd have split up. Split up's actually a pretty good answer to Drake Hatcher because it has vigilance. Like, you can't save the Hatcher and make tokens to like play around the split up. It just everything will be untapped, so it doesn't really work out for them. Kind of leaning going toward this Cottage. Although I could just like 1-for-1 split up the FOMO here. Cottage into Acolyte, or just split up the FOMO. Keep them off of kind of doing some crazy stuff next turn. I think that's okay. Don't be afraid to 1-for-1 with your split ups, I'd say. Especially in these like really, really tempo-oriented matchups. You don't need to 2-for-1 every time. It's still just a 3-mana card. That's not like the end of the world. Riddler. Full bore? I keep expecting a full bore. No, okay. Not bad for us. we can get the lookout on the field, and then hopefully it'll survive for next turn. We can start doing some Elegy Acolyte stuff. Let's just go for the Surveil here. Deep Cavern Bat, I think, is a pretty good draw. Gives us a little flexibility. Let's just see what's going on in their hand. Like, if they play the Riddler here, I get to bat them. Frostcliff Siege. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to go for the... Oh, I didn't leave myself Acolyte mana. Yeah, I kind of goofed on that one, huh? If I bat them, then they get to play the Riddler and draw 2 if they have a land in hand. So I don't super love that. Maybe I just play a Cottage and pass. I guess I could activate Bossing Say here. Let's turn on this Restless Cottage as a way to start generating some foods. We're probably going to need to tap this for black anyway, but they might end up having to do something about this. And then maybe they like double spell here, and I get to split up. Seems pretty unlikely that I'm dead this turn, but Frostcliff Siege is pretty scary. Land, Riddler, draws a card. Cracks the map. Alright, well, I might just split up this Riddler then. And then I can just start swinging in with the Cottage. Not the worst result. Oh, or I could play the Lookout, start swinging in with the Cottage, start getting some land drops. You know what? It's probably just split up bat. Sets up the Acolyte pretty nicely. Keeps them from having hopefully another like Riddler situation in their hand. There's the Riddler. Yeah, I'll just take that. Kaito as well, but not nearly as scary. And now we can tap out for Acolyte and pay it off with the bat. Or the Lookout. Same kind of deal. Thinking about what to do with their Kaito. I mean, roll it up. Okay. Draw a discard. Curious to know what they have going on in hand. Drake Hatcher. Gets to swing in for 2 here. Unopposed. No blocks. No pumps either, so it can't make a Drake quite yet. I'm guessing they have like double land in hand. Seam Rip, that's a really good draw. So we can... It probably makes sense to go for the Acolyte here. And then Seam Rip the Hatcher. We'll trigger the Void. They could have like a Spell Pierce here, I guess. A Null. Interesting. Okay. A little annoying. Yeah. Just kind of gotta cross our fingers that they don't draw something crazy here, I suppose. Land. Get another black source online here. Oh, FOMO's a really disgusting draw. Yeah, I don't think we can beat that. They'll be able to give it unblockable. We can block... I guess we could block something if they don't have removal. But at the very least, they'll be able to get in for pretty heavy with this FOMO. Yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Not throwing in the towel yet. Could have another land in hand. I get to recoup a little life if I swing in with the Cottage as well. Interesting match. Lush Portico. Well, let's play the Lookout here. Let's swing at them. They're definitely just going to give the FOMO unblockable again. I guess we could ignore the Kaito right now. Swing at them with the Elegy Acolyte. Swing at them with everything here. I think that makes sense. Exile. Torch. Get a land. Make a food. Draw an extra card here. Yeah, I guess they just blocked the Restless Cottage, but that's okay. I think we needed that food. We can crack the food now. Kind of a neat synergy. Crack the food now, and we get to trigger the Void. I don't think... you know what? Actually, exiling their graveyard seems pretty good, too. Yeah, that probably makes a little more sense here. Worth about the same amount of life. We still get to trigger the Void on the foam or on the Elegy Acolyte. Okay. Kind of depends on their draws here, but we're not in a horrible position. We're kind of staving off the aggro. Basics on their FOMO. Drake-Hatcher getting pretty big. Gets to see some action here. Talent. No targets for the talent. I guess the basics is back in the graveyard. Yeah, they can't present a lethal board here unless they have Riddler as their last card, probably. Which would be absolutely crazy. But, you know, not outside the realm of possibilities. Moving into combat. Swings all out here. I think kind of the obvious thing to do is block like this. And then say they have full bore here as their last card. They can hit me for 8. No tramp. I guess they would trample for 9 actually. Yeah. All right. Well, that's what we got. They can ultimate the Kaito if they want. Okay. We'll see if they can pay that off. Land is the last card. Activates the Storm Chaser's talent. So we kind of know what's up here. What would we like to draw? Elegy Acolyte. That's kind of interesting. So they can make 2 blockers. We're not guaranteed to get in with anything here, but if we play the second Acolyte and swing with it, and swing with the first one, I think that's pretty good. We're probably just dead in the air anyway. Whenever a player casts a spell, you create a 2/1. Right. I forgot that. I've played quite a bit of 3-mana Kaito, but it's been a while. I forgot it was whenever a player. That's pretty funny. I'll just swing with the Elegy Acolyte here. Try to recoup some life. Blocks. We get to trigger the Void, but I think they're just kind of going nuts here next turn, so probably going to be packing it in. They have Hasty, Trampling, Drakes, and a bunch of Hasty, Trampling Ninjas that they're going to get just for free from casting spells. I think the writing's on the wall. Let's just go ahead and scoop it up. Good first match. Very interesting stuff from our opponent. I think maybe you could argue, had I gotten the Elegy Acolyte on the field a turn earlier from that like land drop sort of misplay, things could have worked out a little differently. But yeah, just a little too much value in the end there, and not enough ways to fight the Kaito. But no problem. Let's move into the next one. Match 2 on the draw. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good hand. It's a little slow depending on what our opponent's up to, but we have some heavy hitters. We have our third land drop. That's ideal. Is it better to lead on the Ketramos or the Lookout here? Let's hold on to this Soul Guide Lantern. It's got the Crime ETB. The Ketramos Mirror. Okay. Well, they've got a little priority here. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and rip this Aang's Iceberg on their Ketramos. They may Aang's Iceberg my Aang's Iceberg, and then we can maybe loop infinitely forever. Okay, I'm gonna go for the Scavenger Regent. It can kill their Ketramoses, but it's a little bit of a pain for them to deal with this, I think. Just a solid beater. Kind of force some action. There's nothing in the graveyard to exile quite yet. I would imagine they have pretty good answers to Ketramos in their deck. They're probably also on some amount of Aang's Iceberg. So I think we just want to be able to get value immediately on these cards. Bright Glass Gear Hulk. Well, Multiversal Passage on black. Womp womp. Just go ahead and swing for 4. I think I'm, I can afford to cast my Ketramos here. Even if the Aang's Iceberg get, not a big deal. This plays around them having just like straight up Day of Judgment though, is kind of what I'm thinking. What I'd like for them to do is start milling themselves. Like, just fire off this demolition field, set up some stuff in the graveyard for us to interact with. Ride's End on my Ketramos. Fair enough. But they put something in the graveyard, so I can get a little value off this Free Strider Lookout here. Grab a Cottage, nice hit. And then we'll go for the Surveil. Yeah, we'll pass on that land now. Swing for 4. We're off to the races. Only need to hit them 3 more times. Ultima. Yeah, fair enough. But now we can resolve this Gear Hulk, which is pretty nice. Sets up well into the Elegy Acolyte. Play the Gear Hulk. I'm going to grab a Phenomena Recorder and the Ghost Vacuum, I think. I'm not going to play the Recorder quite yet. I think I want to get value off of it immediately, and I have enough mana to, like, play the Recorder, play an Aang's Iceberg, and activate it. I think this is fine. I can start exiling the stuff out of my graveyard. And I'm pretty set up for this Elegy Acolyte next turn. What could they have? They could have, like, Elspeth, maybe, as another finisher. Typically, these decks are just packed with board wipes, graveyard hate. Yeah, exile the Lookout first, I think. Bossing Say is a great draw for this matchup. Let's get the Acolyte online. Not convinced that any of this will be surviving this turn, but gotta play our cards. Hit them for 4. We're probably a lot more threat dense than their list is, which could be a boon for us. They're going for a Demolition Field on the Bossing Say. That, you know what? That makes sense. Fair enough. Now we get to hold up this Aang's Iceberg, though. Could be relevant. See if they have any follow-up. No Rides Ends. Deadly Cover Up. I'm I'm going to respond to this by doing an Aang's Iceberg on my Elegy Acolyte because I have another one in hand here. I don't think I want them to name it. We'll just go for protection mode. Oh, they weren't able to collect evidence anyway. Well, it'll all be fine. It'll all be fine. Exile the Deadly Cover-Up, keep them off of their evidence here. I think I'm just going to swing for 4. Is that crazy? And then I can also have the mana to sacrifice this Aang's Iceberg, waterbending with the food / ghost vacuum kind of situation here. And just go for that. Seems pretty good. Seems pretty good. Big Luis from downtown. Well, we can seam rip Big Luis. It's gonna drain me for quite a bit, but I actually have lethal, so it shouldn't be a problem. Sack this Aang's Iceberg. Yeah, I guess we'll take the Lookout. Doesn't really super matter here. Seam rip the Luis. Swing in with the Restless Cottage. Bada bing, bada boom. That's game 1. Pretty good showing. Got to do the sick, like, alternate mode on Aang's Iceberg where you just protect a creature for a turn. It's pretty nice. Against this deck, let's get the Rise of Sozin. Second one in, I think, if we like name Ketramos. Eventually, they probably can't win that match. Voice of Victory could be okay, although they're pretty heavy on seam rips, I'm guessing. Maybe the first Curious Farm Animals is fine to be able to like. I'm guessing they're also on Aang's Iceberg is essentially where I'm at. Yeah, maybe we only need to be on 1 Ghost Vacuum in the main. It's pretty good with the Free Strider Lookout though. And it's kind of like an alternate win con in our deck where eventually we just get back all of our creatures, right? We can cut the split ups. Yeah, maybe we just completely cut the split ups. Doesn't really do anything here. Try it like that. Alright, game 2 on the draw. I think this is a pretty good hand. The mana is a little slow, but we have all of our colors with the Sandstep Citadel and this Herd Heirloom. And we're paid off here pretty quickly by drawing this Godless Shrine. Yeah, Sandstep Citadel. I like that it doesn't, you know, we're playing tap, like we're not doing anything proactive on turn 1 anyway, so I don't think it hurts us at all to be on Sandstep Citadel. I'm gonna go for the Herd Heirloom here. You could argue maybe if you wanted to be a little more proactive, Starting Town would be better, but I think this is just fine. It's just fine. It's a good budget option. Why not? Seam Rip on my Heirloom. Green. I guess we put this on green so we can cast a Gear Hulk on any land draw. And then yeah, we could just run out of farm animals. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Pass it back to you. If we draw another land and they have an empty board, we could just like start getting in with the farm animals. Draw cards off the Acolyte here. I think I'm going to go for this Ketramos. Swing in for 1. Play a Ketramos. See what you got. If they exile it with a Aang's Iceberg on my turn, I get to draw. The end on Ketramos. Well, we're only playing 2, so not the end of the world for us. They get to look at our deck list. Best draw for us right now probably then is a land. Hit this Elegy Acolyte on the field, start drawing. There's a lot to take in my deck list. There's a lot to take in. Bright Glass Gear Hulk. Just get the Free Strider Lookout on the field. They could wipe this board and it'd be okay, I guess. They know the contents of my hand outside of this Gear Hulk. Ride's End, straight up. Fair enough. Land. Pretty good. Go for the Acolyte. Start drawing some cards. Force the issue on this board wipe, basically. Day of Judgment. Gain 3 life. Bat. Well, I'm going to go for the Gear Hulk. A little more proactive as far as the threat goes. Grab a Recorder. We can Seam Rip their Seam Rip. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, it's probably pretty good. We could double the bat trigger with the Recorder is kind of interesting. A lot of mileage out of this Recorder in this build. Could maybe benefit us to be on a Fabled Passage plan, but I think that makes casting Gear Hulks a little harder if we have to like add a swamp to our deck for that reason. Free Strider Lookout's a really nice draw here. Let's go for the Lookout. Start trying to open up our mana a little more. See if we can get a trigger off of it, I suppose. Go for the Soul Guide Lantern. They might just kill it. Aang's Iceberg. Well, that's not a big problem. We have this Recorder into Aang's Iceberg play. We have, we just have way more cards than them at this point. And we have answers to Catcher, most importantly. They might just start firing up the Restless Fortress. There's a Godless Shrine. So we can do the double bat thing. There's maybe not much of a reason to other than it's kind of funny. It's pretty unlikely that they have stuff to hit. Stuff to take. But if they have like double board wipe in hand, I think this is actually a pretty good play. And it's nearly free. We're not investing any of our powerful cards really into this play. We get a lot of information, and the ceiling's pretty high. Okay. Cease Desist. Good to know. Well, I imagine they won't be exiling all artifacts and enchantments anytime soon. Kind of a weird tension that I found, and what ultimately took me off of Cease Desist in this list was that we have so much removal that is, these Oblivion Ring effects, that it's really just a one-sided card at that point. You're never going to destroy all artifacts and enchantments, so I was like, why even play it then if it's just 2 mana, gain 2 life cycle, essentially. The Graveyard Hate on Cease is pretty relevant, but I digress. Let's go for Big Dragon here. Pass it back. I'd imagine they'll fire off the Cease Desist. I'm kind of waiting for them to do it before I start eating up these enchantments. Cycles. The other thing that's kind of interesting too about this Scavenger Regent plus Phenomena Recorder is that Ward is a trigger. So were they to have like 2 cards in hand and target this to kill it, they'd have to discard 1, and then I can like copy the Ward trigger to basically keep them from being able to kill my Regent, which I think is kind of interesting. Well, I can afford an Acolyte, but I wouldn't be able to save it with an Aang's Iceberg. It's probably just best to swing in here. Maybe think about going for the double Aang's Iceberg on their end step. No need to be too aggressive here. Maze Mind Tome. Okay. Drawing cards. I think I'm actually going to hit the Seam Rip and the Maze Mind Tome with this Aang's Iceberg. It's currently what I'm thinking. Fires up the Restless Fortress. Although if they have an Ultima, they would be Ultima-ing their own Maze Mind Tome. I guess I could go Aang's Iceberg on their removal and then play a Seam Rip to trigger the Freeze Rider Lookout. Definitely going to hit that Seam Rip. Yeah, let's just go for this. Okay, another land's probably not the worst draw here. Let's us play this Elegy Acolyte. Start swinging in. Draw a card here off the Scavenger Regent. I think I'm just going to hold up this Aang's Iceberg, most likely. Trigger these guys. Draw some cards. Yeah, I could go for the Seam Rip right now in the Maze Mind Tome. I'd get the Void and I'd get the Crime, but if they have a board wipe here, I might regret that. Could be on Ugin. Sometimes these decks maybe are also on Ugin with all the like Maze Mind Tomes that they're on as well. There's an Ugin. Speak of the Devil. Goes to exile my Aang's Iceberg. Fine. Nope, decides to exile the Elegy Acolyte instead. Yeah, let's save this guy. I think I'm going to want him around. And then I can almost kill the Ugin if they roll it up. And maybe I just hit them, start drawing some cards. Yeah, I'm going to go for this. It's bad into a board wipe, but I like that I get to scry and then draw several cards this way. Deep Cavern Bat's a pretty good hit here. Just swing at their face. I think this is okay. We'll see. Draw a couple cards. They're not really pressuring my life total. Bright Glass. Well, I think I'm going to go double Deep Cavern here. Commit a crime. Conqueror. Maze Mind Tome. Okay. There are worse things. Restless Cottage is a good hit. Play my Hushward Verge. I don't think I care about hitting the Maze Mind Tome quite yet. Keeps them off of another draw, I guess. But I think it maybe makes more sense to hold up cycling the Soul Guide Lantern. It's tricky. Yeah. We'll hit their Maze Mind, I think. I have several Seam Rips to play with. You got a couple draws. See what you hit here. The end on my bat. Okay. You get stuff back in your hand. 2 more bats in the deck, I think. I kind of wish we had a way to buff the bat. Like, even if we had a way to just make it like a 2-2, maybe like one abandoned air temple, just to help stabilize a little bit. Maze Mind Tome probably exiles the Acolyte here. No, now going for the Aang's Iceberg. So then they'll be able to like seam rip my seam rip, and then Aang's Iceberg the Elegy Acolyte. Seam rip on the robot. Wait. Okay, Aang's Iceberg the Acolyte, seam rip on the robot. Okay, fair enough. Maze Mind Tome. Draws a card. Still, I'm not in a bad spot. In fact, I mean, I have lethal. If I find removal for this Clarion Conqueror. Is there anything I can hit off the Gear Hulk to remove this? I don't think so. See what you got. Ghost Vacuums and Seam Rips, huh? Well, guess we fire this up. Coming at you. Commit a crime here. Grab a passage. We'll put that on white. Doesn't super matter at this point. Make them block something. Blocks the cottage. Well, they probably should just trade with the lookout here, huh? It might make sense to blow up this Soul Guide Lantern right now. Let's seam rip the Maze Mind Tome. Blow up the Soul Lantern. Keep them from being able to collect evidence on a... yeah, the 5-mana board wipe. I don't know. I can never remember that card name. I can never remember it. This is probably fine. Maybe we just wait. There's not really anything they could hit that super scares me anyway. They're going to be gaining some life, drawing a card. It's fine. We're fine. We're doing it. Very grindy match. I think we might be able to close this one out outside of them having maybe Ultima here. Well, there's the Ultima. So we exile their graveyard. We still have a Restless Cottage on the field, with which we can garner some card advantage. Possibly. They can ult Ugin, but I'm not really sure how much that does for them, to be honest with you. They might chump block with the Restless Cottage here. No need to exile anything. Make a food. Oh, I don't have the Herd Heirloom anymore because of the Ultima. Right. Play a Ghost Vacuum. Yeah, I'm not positive that I'm winning this one, but I don't know. We'll see what they have off of this Ugin. I mean, obviously more Ugins is fine, but this is not like an Ugin forward list necessarily. They could like get a bunch of their Maze Mind Tomes back, I suppose. They could double fire up Restless Fortress and start coming at me. That'd be pretty annoying. Rolls up Ugin. Fine. I only have 24 cards left in my deck. Restless Fortress. Might as well go all in. Fire them both up. Why not? There you go. Swing it in. Hits me. Yeah, gain some life. We can kind of do this back and forth for a little while, but they're ultimately winning this race. Land. Start filling up this ghost vacuum. There's not much to grab off the Gear Hulk, but still not an awful body. Play it pretty quick here. Not much thought. Kind of do the same thing. Not really a reason to start hitting Ugin. They didn't ult it last turn. They're not going to do it this turn. Tapped Godless Shrine. Pass it back to you. Oh, they have something. Cycle Intimidation Tactics. Okay. Pretty likely we're just in the same position, man. I mean, you might as well just do the exact same thing. Roll up the Ugin, swing at me with the fortresses. Back and forth like this for a little while. I'll even sacrifice my food. Resolves. Yes, yes. Fortresses coming in. Not really anything I can do about this. Wouldn't mind a Bossing Say. Bossing Say would help us quite a lot, I think. Could start putting counters on this Valgavoth layer. Let's grab this Curious Farm Animals. We can blow up their Aang's Iceberg. Get a couple things online here. Aang's Iceberg. Okay, nice draw. So we have a lot of mana to work with. I think we start with pop the Ghost Vacuum here. We don't really have a whole lot to grab other than a second Ghost Vacuum, which is actually kind of nice. Not a lot of cards left in our deck. 2 Restless Cottages, a Bossing Say, some hitters. Blow up the Aang's Iceberg. Gain some life. I don't think I can swing with the cottage this turn. They're water bending. Okay. But I can blow up this Ugin or eat the Ugin with the Aang's Iceberg here. If they have board wipe plus swing with double Restless Cottage, I think I lose to that. But I don't think there's any way I can play around that. Other than maybe holding up my own Restless Cottage. Swing with double Restless Fortress, put me to 4, and then... Yeah, they probably have the mana to, like, board wipe. Double Restless Fortress, so... We'll just play out what we got. Cross our fingers. One, two, three, four. Board wipe. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Pretty nice finish here if that's what they do. Now, if it's Ultima, they can't do that. But if it is Day of Judgment, they will secure the win after this long, grindy game. I probably will only play 3 matches for this video. Kills my Elegy Acolyte, just due to the grindy nature of it. And I'm trying to catch up on my backlog a little bit here. I'll be out of town this weekend, so... like to do a little catch up. Okay, double swing with Restless Fortress makes sense here. I have to chump with the Bright Glass. Not that that's the end of the world. Oh, they have removal for my Bright Glass. Okay. Double Get Lost. And that'll do it. Wow. Game 3, huh? Maybe we just bring in Voice of Victory, just like more bodies. Kind of interesting. We're kind of on like a... I guess maybe the Get Lost is pretty good against their Aang's Icebergs, and let's cut down on the Seam Rips and their Ugins. Maybe go up the Duresses. Try to rip apart their hand a little. Go down. Go down Uggos Vacuum. Yeah, we can stick it with one Seam Rip. That's fine. It hits stuff, but not enough stuff to be particularly strong. I think I'd rather just have more heavy hitters. Try it like that. Match 2, Game 3, on the play. Good hand. The mana's good. I like seeing the early bat here. I think we're kind of make or break on being able to pick apart their hand a little bit. Lead on the Restless Cottage. We can just play this Verge here. Play a bat. See what you're up to. Ketchermos, Cease, Ultima, Deadly Cover Up. On the board wipe plan. Well, we can Aang's Iceberg there. Ketchermos. I guess we take... I guess it doesn't super matter. Let's just take the Cease here. Keep them from an early play to see more options. I think this plays out okay for us. They don't have an answer to our Ketchermos here. Swing in. And then if they play Ketchermos, we get to trigger ours, which is pretty nice. Aang's Iceberg. Bat. Okay. I'd like to see the bat. Let's put this layer on white here. That's Gear Hulk mana. Maze Mind Tome. Land. I think I'm just going to fire up this Restless Cottage. There's not much else for us to do, really. Nothing in graveyards to exile, so just hit them for 5 here. Their board wipes don't look very good into this plan. They have a Demolition Field now. But that's honestly not the end of the world, because it'll set up our Soul Guide Lantern. To double draw us here. Okay, still in my main phase. That's actually not irrelevant. Float a black. Grab a plains. Play my Soul Guide Lantern. I'm going to exile my Restless Cottage. Draw a card. See what we hit. Aang's Iceberg. That's a nice draw. I think I'm just going to swing with the bat and pass. I don't think that it makes sense necessarily to play a second bat when we know they have 2 board wipes. Just kind of keep them in this position for a little bit. I could crack this Soul Guide Lantern right now, but I don't think the extra draw necessarily does anything for us. I guess what it does is, like, at the very least pays off the Ketchermos before they Ultima, but I doubt they're going to Ultima this board, right? They'd hit their own Maze Mind Tome in the process. Doesn't seem super worth it. And I can just cycle this Soul Guide Lantern, which is effectively the same thing. Drawing cards, trying to hit their land drops here. A lot of cards in hand. Seam Rip. On. My bat. Okay. One more thing in exile here. Okay, actually, I guess it was a net 0. Lush Portico. Maybe we go for double bat here. See what they got going on. I could go for triple bat. Get lost their Seam Rip. That'd be kind of crazy. Well, rides end, eh? Ketramos doesn't scare me. Maybe we just take the board wipes and put ourselves in a very fragile position. No, probably not. Probably not. Let's take the Ride's End. Play a Lush Portico. Elegy Acolyte's a good draw. And we can hold up an Aang's Iceberg next turn when we play it to save it. Okay. What a grindy match. Wow. Just back and forth forever and ever. Still, we're slowly making a headway. They have Ugin, which is very, very strong in this matchup. But not in their hand, necessarily. 2 Demolition Fields, a little annoying. Tap out for a Ride's End here. Well, I could save Ketramos with an Aang's Iceberg. That probably makes sense. Just because Ketramos is otherwise a pretty nice resilient threat to most of their removal. Probably makes sense to have him under here. Now, which one is my Ketramos and which one is theirs? Okay, owner, Apricot Knight, owner, me. It's pretty funny. Acolyte, go. Draw some cards. We're going to eat a board wipe here, but at least we're forcing some action. Sack of food. Eating a board wipe now sets up our future bats a little better, makes them a little less fragile. I'm guessing they'll fire off the Ultima first because they can't collect evidence on the deadly cover-up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess they could play Cease Desist to be able to collect evidence, which would be kind of annoying. There's the Ultima. Okay, we'll draw a card here. Yeah. Almost tempting to just get our Ketramos back on the field, but unfortunately that was not really an option. So there's the Ride's End back in their hand. Duress is a pretty good draw, I think. Play a tapped land. Duress you. We can get rid of this like Deadly Cover-Up or Ride's End once and for all. Probably better to get rid of the Ride's End. Lean into our Ketramos plan. Play the first bat here. Exile their Maze Mind Tome, I think. I could just take them off of Ketramos. We don't have any good answers for that right now anyway. Pass it back to him. 9 minutes left on my clock. I would imagine their clock is also going to be running short here pretty soon. I don't think I've been playing glacially slow, but maybe I have. There's a lot to think about here. They could destroy all artifacts and enchantments. I don't think the result's in their favor necessarily. Okay, get lost on my Aang's Iceberg. Well, I could crack my Aang's Iceberg to scry and then waterbend with my creatures to scry again. I don't think there's any reason really not to do that. Crack this. I guess if they happen to draw into Ride's End, it puts my Ketramos into a fragile position. We'll take a backup Ketramos. Nah, this one's living forever. Elegy Acolyte is a good draw. I know this to be true. Neither of our Ketramoses are online. I guess they go online by definition at the same time. So if they were to fire off this cease desist, or the cease, you know, they'd turn on my Ketramose. Deadly cover up. Turning on my Ketramose. Getting their second one back to hand. Exiling Elegy Acolyte. Okay. Well, good choice. We have one on top of the deck. Little shuffle action. I do like the Deadly cover-up collecting evidence, drawing a card for Ketramose sort of plan. Maybe that makes a little more sense as a board wipe for our deck than Rise of Sozin. Mazemind Tome. Scavenger Regent. I think I'm going to plan to bat here and then maybe bat again. I could maybe like wipe the board of Ketramoses here, but it doesn't really seem correct. Ultima. I can't imagine that they're going to cast... I don't know. I don't know. I don't super know. I'm going to take the Ultima, play the Scavenger Regent, try to start winning the race here, but the problem ultimately is our Ketramoses swinging in forms of parity. We have to break the parity by committing to the board, but if we commit to the board, then their board wipes get that much better. There's almost an argument for like get losting the seam rip in their draw step just to keep them off, you know, delay things for another turn, but they also have these Restless Fortresses, which are gaining them some life. So it doesn't buy us a whole lot of time. Like, I don't know. We don't have a whole lot of time before they just, like, put the game into an unwinnable position. Draw some cards. Yeah, I mean, we have some good draws left in the deck. A Gear Hulk would go crazy, set up our Ketramose nicely to actually like start getting some card advantage off of it. I'm kind of wondering if they hit an Ultima here. I think I might like blow up the seam rip here because I don't think I can win through an Ultima. Let's set a stop at end of combat here. I can't let them Ultima this board. Or Day of Judgment or what have you. Aang's Iceberg. Oh, that's even... Yeah, okay, that's not great. That's not great. Their Ketramose is drawing so many cards. Yeah, well, I was right at the very least. Setting up for that Day of Judgment, but they just had so many options there anyway. What's our best draw here? Bright Glass is still pretty good, I think. Aang's Iceberg. Okay, well, we can get our Ketramose back at the very least. Swing it in. I guess it probably makes more sense to exile their Ketramose this turn, keep them off of that little bit of extra life gain, and then they have a backup Ketramose. The end. Okay. I think I respond to this by exiling their Ketramose. It's a little annoying that they have another one to play, but keeping them off of the card draw here is somewhat relevant. They get to draw the card anyway. Well, now this actually kind of forces them to wipe the board rather than replay a Ketramose. Not that I'm happy about them wiping the board. Yeah, I don't think I'm winning this one. I think their removal lines up pretty nicely with what I'm doing, and they're just able to go a little bigger with the Ugins and whatnot. Yeah, I'll scoop it up. I'll scoop it up. I'll scoop it up. Not a great showing. Not a great showing. All right, match number 3. Hopefully we get a quick one to wrap all of this up. Not really going our way. We've had some close games. I think we've gone to game 3 in both matches, which, you know, means that the deck has some legs, right? We're winning games. Just had a hard time closing out the game against the Ketramos list. Had a hard time keeping up with the pace of the aggro list. Makes you kind of wonder if midrange is allowed to exist in the meta right now. I don't know. It feels almost like midrange is a little too slow, too like, how to put it? It doesn't have definitive enough answers against the go wide lists. I mean, we are on 4 split ups, but is that enough, right? And our finishers are not necessarily strong enough against control lists. And so if you're not on control, you're not really beating go wide. And if you're not on, or, you know, you're not beating the fast decks. And if you're not on the fast decks, you're not as good against the control decks. I don't know. Does that make sense? Or is that just the ramblings of a madman desperate for a win? I see some lists online labeling like the Badgermole Cub, Golgari, Ouroboros list as quote unquote mid range, but is that just because they have main deck removal? I don't know. That doesn't feel quite right to me. Any list on Badgermole Cub plus Ouroboros feels inherently go wide. I guess they have card advantage if they're on Hollowmark Siege, so that maybe makes them more mid range than like the all in Ouroboros list. Well, we're set up pretty nicely against whatever the hell this is. If they have an Ugin as their last card, they're going to be a little sad about this bat. Swamp. Okay. Get double black online for this Rise of Sozin. Nothing under the bat is not necessarily the worst place to be. Give up the Hedron Archive for some card advantage here. I don't know. I don't know if anyone else is feeling this more than anything, you know, having this opinion as well, where it's like, because the Boyd decks are so good at what they're doing and the Lessons decks are so good at what they're doing, you either have to be doing that or positioned to fight that specifically, like in a way that is like you're filling your whole deck with answers rather than these decks like the one I'm playing here, where it's just like card advantage creatures, and it's good sometimes, but it's also just a little too slow, maybe. Not putting enough pressure on my opponent before they enact their game plan. And right now, game plans are just so strong that it gives you very little time to it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of complicated. The ramblings of a madman. Hedron Archive. Ooh, Free Strider lookout. Maybe we just jam this Rise of Sozin, get it to trigger and name Ugin. I actually don't think that's the worst idea. Let's go for this. Kill the bat. Not the end of the world here. I'm curious to know if they're on Rise of Sozin as well. But I mean, they're definitely on Ugins, right? So if we have this opportunity to try to sneak under all of that and take them off of the Ugins, that could be all the difference for us. Luis, fine. We can beat that. Split up. Now, what's this Ugin called? Is there only one? Urgin. Eye of the Storms? Hold on, I gotta look it up. Okay, Eye of the Storms. 3 in their deck. Unholy Annex, One Rise of Sozin, Ashiok, Solemn Simulacrum, just like mono black big. Okay, that makes sense. One more Luis. Archenemy's Charm in hand to recur their Luis is a little annoying. But we can split up this Luis and then play our Free Strider Lookout here. Yeah, I'm not necessarily sold on the lookouts in this list, by the way. I think having creatures that don't that can't trigger the Herd Heirloom ability is a little awkward outside of the bats. I think that the bats make sense, but the fact that I'm investing 3 mana into this guy and it can't even like feed my Herd Heirloom is a little annoying. Still a work in progress, you know. Big Demon, gonna be a bit of a problem for us. They can also wipe the board if they want. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm winning this one. I think they're just a little too big for me, once again. I'm too slow to put the pressure on. Bring in the Duresses, bring in the Voice of Victories. Let's try to go for more of an aggro tilt this time. They're on Day of Black Sun, so let's cut the Ketramoses. Let's cut Soul Guide Lanterns. Let's cut like all of the Ketramos stuff. Go down a couple Seam Rips. Cut the Rise of Sozin. I think that's fine. Just try to get under it all here. Maybe steal this match. Match 3, game 2, on the play. Gonna keep this one. This could have legs. The mana's a little slow, but we eventually get to resolve a Gear Hulk here. Put some pressure on with the bat, slow down their game plan a little. I think I'm probably just gonna, depending on what I draw in the next few turns, pretty likely that I just play all of my lands tapped here to guarantee that I can play this untapped on turn 4 and play the Gear Hulk. Might be able to steal a win here. Cruel Claw's Heist. Fine. Not the end of the world. Our hand is pretty flat in terms of power level. It might take the Gear Hulk, but would not be a big deal. Takes the Aang's Iceberg. Okay. Hit you with the bat. Yeah, I gotta take them off of the Unholy Annex. It's possible that they just play Luis for 2 here. Sorry, for X equals 1. It seems a little unlikely. Cruel Claw's Heist. Not a huge deal. Seam Rip for the Luis is pretty good. Let's go tapped land, Lookout, and then we can start firing up the Restless Cottage next turn. Start getting some crimes. Realm of Co. Now they might Luis for 3. Sorry, for 2. Luis for 2. Exile my Lookout. Okay. Swing it in. Now if they play Luis, we can Seam Rip and continue to swing in, which is pretty nice. I'm a huge Restless Cottage fan. I think it's probably the best man land in Standard right now. Maybe outside of like Soulstone Sanctuary, which arguably sees the most play. Luis. Bit of a drain. Land. Go for seam rip. Go for swing rip. Putting the pressure on here. Putting the pressure on. Today's Friday, as I'm recording this. I've got F&M tonight. I'm bringing deserts. Yes, that's right. It's deserts. One of my favorite archetypes. Playing a kind of a classic list, more of a dip my toes into blue sort of control style in the top end. I don't own Overlord of the Baelmercs in paper. If I did, I'd probably play some number of those, but instead I'm like 2 Zombify, a Bonnie Paul, a ton of one-ofs. I'm going to hold on to the bat for, you know what? It's kind of crazy not to play the bat maybe, right? If I can just kill them next turn. I'm going to go for it. They'll probably end up sacrificing the Hedron Archive, but this could be a relevant last card in hand right now. And mostly I just want to be able to maybe just kill them. Find my window here. Yeah, that's pretty relevant. That's pretty relevant. See what they draw. There's Ugin. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Yeah, the problem is, like, running into 2 Ugin decks specifically, Ugin, that sort of top-end effect, classically eats mid-range decks alive. I remember playing a ton of, like, mid-range in Modern, and just anytime you face Tron, it's like, well, okay, well, I may be able to get out of the gates a little bit, but I'm never going to be able to outpace your Karns when you resolve them, and especially if you know, I deal with the first Karn and you just have a second one, and it's like, okay, or Ugin or whatever have you. I mean, this was kind of back in the day when Tron was more Planeswalker centric. Solemn Simulacrum. Yeah, I'll just scoop it up. All right, not the best run. Not the best run today. I don't know. Do I post this? Do I not post it? Let me know what you think in the future. If you've made it this far in the video and you don't like seeing these, like, kind of speculative, still theory crafting the deck runs where ultimately it just doesn't really work out in our favor, is that worthy of being postable YouTube content? If you have any thoughts on that, let me know. For my life and my schedule, and, you know, committing to posting every day, I think some of the videos are just going to end up being like this, and that's life, you know. You have your 5-0s, you have your 0-3s. That's just how it goes. I think the deck needs a little retuning, you know. I think maybe the ideas right now don't really fit into the current standard. I tend to like my Bright Glass decks where they're a little more aggressive, and Bright Glass acts as this value piece top end that's still on a pretty aggressive body. I think Ketramos maybe just needs to be played with more board wipes to enable it. And this sort of waffling idea of, like, well, what if we just try to jam all this together? Maybe doesn't really work out. So if we wanted to lean more into this, I think the core of, like, Elegy Acolyte plus Deep Cavern Bat plus Gear Hulk, I think this is all kind of interesting, plus the Herd Heirloom plan. I think maybe it would make more sense to go down on the things that make it bad and lean into the stuff that makes it good. Like, we could cut the Ketramos stuff and then now pack this with a bit more, like, we don't need to be on Aang's Iceberg anymore, really. Pack this with a bit more aggression to pay off the Herd Heirlooms. I don't know, like Surox maybe? Go down that direction where we're really, really, you know, incentivized to play a more mid-range herd heirloom plan, a bit more aggressive to get under the control decks, but still have access to these like seam rips and deep cavern bats to slow down the game. Something to think about. But if, despite all of that, despite all the losses, if you liked this video, thanks for watching. If you are interested in seeing more standard brews and the process of coming to the conclusion on what makes a good deck, why don't you come on back? And if you stuck through this one, certainly some of my other videos are better. Why don't you go check those out too? Recently, I had a really good successful run with Boros Modified. Check out that video. That was pretty fire. Went on a pretty hot streak there. So if you want to see some dubs, there you go. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.